Welcome to Arizona Cardinals Underground. The latest news and notes from the guys who cover the team. From Cardinals headquarters in Tempe, here's Darren Urban.
Welcome to another edition of Cardinals Underground on azcardinals.com. I'm Darren Urban. I'm joined with Damien Anderson and Kyle Odegard, and we're talking defense now. Again, the Cardinals have a roster that's relatively set heading into the draft, maybe a guy or two. But defensively, they've made a lot of moves. It's and it starts with the defensive coordinator, guys. I mean, Todd Bowles leaves to go be the head coach of the New York Jets. James Bettcher is the internal promoted person, and Bruce Arians made it very clear when he was talking at the owners' meetings that this was pretty much the plan. When James Bettcher showed up here originally on his original staff, Bruce Arians walked in the door, said, Todd Bowles is my defensive coordinator. I want him to get a head coaching job, hopefully sooner rather than later. And obviously at the time, he didn't say James Bettcher is my guy. But apparently that was always kind of his thought process is if Todd Bowles leaves, I want James Bettcher to take over. And when you add in all the roster moves and all the new pieces, there's going to be a lot of question marks going into this season of what this defense can do and if they can repeat some stuff. But at the very top, and I'll start with you, Damien, while there's a lot of new players that didn't necessarily play with Todd Bowles, there's a lot of guys that were here, and they're going to have to get used to a new coordinator. How is that adjustment? I mean, especially with a guy like Bettcher who has not been a coach for long.
Well, I think that when you had Todd Bowles, you had to assume respect because he played the game at a high level, and I think that they saw the results immediately of guys, having production on the football field, whether it be getting sacks, stopping the run, just the residual effect throughout the play. And I think if they have that same type of results with Bettcher, I think the team's just going to continue to grasp and follow and let him lead by example. But I think it all starts with BA. I think that he's had nothing but success since he's been in the National Football League, and he has like a crystal ball. Whatever he says seems to work. And and guys follow him and watch him. And I think that if coach says, hey, this guy is our guy that's going to lead us, lead our defense and go out there, I think that everyone's going to buy in and follow. And I think that the good thing about it is that necessarily you don't have some seasoned veterans or guys that maybe have that what's the word I'm looking for, Darren, that type of dissension amongst the team. You don't necessarily have that. You have a lot of guys that are eager, want to play, some familiarity with the coaching staff, with the new acquisitions. And I think that that's the most important thing, to have guys with that buy-in and want to play for a guy like Bettcher.
Yeah, I think you're right. It's a very tight-knit group. They've been like that. They've been winning the last couple of years, and I don't think that's going to be a problem. And you talk to James Bettcher, and you can tell really quickly he's a very smart guy. And as far from that point of view, I think the guys are going to respect him. My question is, Todd Bowles wasn't just a very good coordinator. He blitzed a lot, and he did a lot of exotic things. So is that Bettcher's style, and how much will he do that, and is he comfortable doing that? Would he rather do something else? And in his press conference when he was announced, he said he's going to take some stuff from Todd because he was so successful, but he also wants to bring in some of his own stuff. So I'll be interested to see how he does play calling, and we'll get a taste of it maybe in the preseason in the first couple games.
Well, and some of this is going to be based on the players he has, obviously.
Absolutely.
And that leads us into what we're talking next. And if we want to start talking about this front seven, I mean, there's a reason Todd Bowles blitzed a lot. It wasn't just because he loves to blitz. I think that's part of his personality. But part of it was personnel. I mean, they had Patrick Peterson, good press corner. They signed Antonio Cromartie last year, good press corner. Part of the reason they did all that was because they realized, hey, we don't have that one or two dynamic pass rushers that are going to get to the quarterback if we drop 7 in coverage. So we're going to have to bring guys. So they still don't have that dynamic pass rusher. I mean, Alex Okafor had 8 sacks last year, had a solid season, but nobody's going to confuse him with DeMarcus Ware or anybody like that. And they still don't have that guy. It's probably a major draft need, a major draft target. I will not be surprised if the pass rusher is that first draft pick in the first round, depending on who's there. But you look at how they're building that front seven. They bring in Sean Weatherspoon as a free agent at linebacker who can be out there all 3 downs, and he can rush the passer. And he, in some ways, he's like Carlos Dansby was a couple years ago. They get Corey Peters in free agency, let Dan Williams go. In part because I think they feel like Corey Peters can be on the field more and they can move him around more, and they did not feel Dan Williams was that guy. They got Corey Redding for defensive end. They got a lot of age right now, even with Ed Stinson and maybe Kareem Martin, they've got a lot of age in that front seven, but they feel like they got a little more versatile. And I'm wondering, Kyle, I mean, like, it's hard to really know exactly how these pieces are going to fit in, but it's going to have a different look.
Sure, and that's the big question is, can you find that edge rusher in the draft? And even if you take him in the first round at 24, a lot of these guys still aren't, you're not a Jadeveon Clowney. It's not come in right away and be this dynamic guy. Maybe it's a guy that's good, but he still has to learn technique a little bit, so maybe he's not that double-digit sack guy right away, and he can be part of a rotation. But it's something where you look at those guys, and I think a guy like Stinson is pretty interesting, the way he played in the middle of the season before getting hurt. And Arians even mentioned he could play some defensive tackle and play inside or play outside. So if he can bring a little bit, Calais Campbell obviously is going to get you 8 to 10 sacks probably. Okafor really had 8 sacks and he didn't play early, so maybe he can be that 8 to 10 sack guy. So it'll come from different spots. But if you don't have that one guy, and we'll see who they draft and if they can find that gem. But if not, I think it is going to still be mixing and matching and doing you're going to have to blitz, I think, to get to the quarterback if you don't add anybody.
Well, I mean, it's interesting before the draft, Damien, you're talking about, I mean, right now, the big things with this team are they're talking about taking 2014 third-round pick Kareem Martin, who came out, when he came out and he was here, like the first thing they did was say, we think he can be like Calais Campbell in terms of body type. And 1 year later, after he did not play a lot last year, they're saying maybe he can find his niche as an outside linebacker. I mean, there's one possibility, which brings a lot of question marks into it. They signed Lamar Woodley, who has had a very fine NFL career, and he's only 30 years old, but he was hurt last year. His production has dropped off quite a bit the last couple of years, and now you're talking about, hey, is he going to be your Larry Foote where he's got to play a lot of downs? I mean, these are questions that in a perfect world, if they hit, you're okay, but there's certainly no guarantees.
No, and I think Darren, we've been working together a long time, because I just feel like I was gonna really talk about that Larry Foote and the impact of Lamar Woodley, and having a guy, the familiarity also with Coach Bruce Arians. But I think that when you have a guy like Larry Foote on staff or on the roster, depending upon what happens there, but then you see the type of impact that he had. I mean, Larry Foote, I didn't think that was going to happen in terms of his impact on the football field, and I don't think that anyone just saw him as a guy. He was a roster filler, a veteran to come in, play a couple of downs and just fulfill a role. But he came in there and he was, lightning out of a bottle, and he made things happen from day one and continues to have an impact anytime he's on the football field. And I think that they're looking to get that from Lamar Woodley. Although his success has been limited to really 2008 through 2010, they're looking for that to happen again. Maybe they put these guys on one-year deals. They have a little bit of motivation there because they see what happened to Cromartie. I mean, essentially came in here 1 year, had a lot of success, Pro Bowler, and then now he's got very well compensated. So they hopefully, hey, it's a good football team, beautiful weather, got a great coach, some familiarity there. Hopefully these guys can respond in a major way and have that production as well.
Well,
and with Keim's track record, like you say, of getting Cromartie, getting Dansby, getting John Abraham.
Exactly, yeah.
I think I have pretty high hopes for Woodley, where if you can, I don't think he can be an every down linebacker. You don't want him playing outside linebacker every down, but if you can make him a situational pass rusher, like you said, he's only 30.
Like Abraham started.
Yeah, he's not 35. If he can get healthy, if he can do that and just focus on certain things, I think he could be a guy that gets some sacks for him.
Well, and the X factor too is, and nobody's going to be talking about it with the team right now because they really can't, but the X factor is Darrell Washington and whether he gets reinstated and whether this team brings him back, and if he does come back, what can he do? How would he mix in with Weatherspoon? I mean, there's a possibility there. Of course, if you have good play on the backside in the secondary, it's going to help your front seven. I mean, they work in tandem, but this team feels like it's in pretty good shape secondary-wise. Obviously, Cromartie left as a free agent, and there is some concern there in terms of, does Gerard Powers become your starter again? You did that in 2013, and he was pretty decent, and he had a very good year last year, but that was partly because he was playing in maybe a little bit better role for him in the slot. Justin Bethel, can he take a step forward? You probably need to draft a cornerback. I know Arian said he wants to draft a cornerback. But between him and Bethel and Powers and Patrick Peterson, and you got Tyrann Mathieu, who should be back completely healthy, and he can kind of swing back between safety and be on the field at all times. And Tony Jefferson played pretty well last year. You still got Rashad Johnson. You're still trying to figure out what you want to do with Dale Buchanan in terms of a lot of nickel linebacker, some safety, whatever it might be. The secondary seems to be in pretty good shape. If you add a cornerback, maybe better, but I think they got to be pretty happy with what they got back there.
No, I mean, you definitely see talent there, Darren, for all of the aforementioned reasons that you said. And, I mean, there's nothing but talent. Granted, you lose a guy like Cromartie. I mean, a great playmaker, long. You don't necessarily get guys drawn up that look like that.
No.
6 foot, 1, 2, long, can run.
But they knew he probably was going to be gone.
Absolutely. Yeah. But I think that when you have depth, when you have Powers, when you have Bethel, when you have even Tyron that could go out there and play a little bit of corner, that's things that you want. But I think that there's a guy out there, and this year's corner, I'd say draft isn't that deep. There's one guy that's been jumping out as of late. I just had a workout, 2 days ago? A kid from UConn ran a 4.40 broad jump 12.3 at the combine. I mean, the kid's a freak, and I know that our player development staff is very, very high on him. So that's the only player that I could see if they could possibly get him, maybe in the first or second round. But other than that, I just really see them being comfortable with what they have at that secondary, because I like what they have. To me, Darren, I want to throw this back to you guys. How do you see Deion Buchanan rolling out, whether him playing a safety or that linebacker position like he did last year?
I think you look at the speed he can bring, and I think it'd be great if you can move him back to safety. The big question is, do you have somebody that can play that linebacker role on third down that he was so good at? If you can find a guy to go there, then you can move him back to safety. He's a pretty fast guy. You put him and Tyron back there, and you realize how good those two guys can be. And you don't want to bring up the Legion of Boom too much, but you look at Cam Chancellor and Earl Thomas and the way that they kind of have the same style of those two guys and all the success they have. So maybe you don't do those two guys full-time at those positions this year, because Tyron might have to play slot and he can move around. He's very versatile, but it is something where in your base defense, I like that combo a lot.
Well, the bottom line is Bruce Arians loves the versatility up and down the lineup. And, even he mentioned the other day, there's a reason why when the Cardinals introduced their defense at home games, there's 13 or 14 guys that are announced. And it's because he considers them all starters, because it just depends on what time of the game it is and who's going to be on the field. So this defense will be very interesting under James Betcher, and that's the best part of the offseason and training camp, is kind of seeing how this all develops. For Kyle Odegard and Damien Anderson, I'm Darren Urban. This has been another edition of Cardinals Underground on azcardinals.com.